Hey, let's call this. It's 9:30. Let's call the meeting to order. Ms. Parker, can you begin with the roll call vote?
Mr. Standifer,
Here.
Mr. Hillsman,
Here.
Mr. Davis,
Here.
Mr. Watkins,
Here.
Mr. Woolley,
Here.
Mr. Sanchez,
Here.
and Mrs. Parker here.
Okay,
Here we're quorum.
we do have a quorum. Very good. Next item 3, discussion and action items. Item A is elect a vice chairperson. So I would entertain any nominees for vice chairperson for the Public Works Committee.
I nominate Mr. Steve Davis.
Okay,
I'll second that. He's interested.
we have a nomination for any further nominations? Hearing none, we have a nomination of Mr. Steve Davis has been seconded. We'll take a roll. Or I guess all in favor, just say aye.
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 Those opposed? None. Very good. Next item B, discussion of roads. I'd like to begin. I had a brief conversation with city staff, asked them to if we could refer to them to begin this project, just give us a quick update of what roads are in progress, what roads they maybe have finished and are closing out financially, and then what do they have in the future. So Pat, if you had a chance to get ready, I'd just defer to you for a moment.
I did get a chance to be ready, but I also brought my expert. She's in charge of that, but she'll speak on what's in progress and what where we're at each point right now.
Okay.
Okay. So what do we want to look at first? Do you want to look at what we have closed out? Or do you want to look at what we're in progress doing now?
I think I wouldn't mind hearing the recent projects you've done that you're in the process of closing, and then go into what you're currently on, and then what our future plans are. Is what I think. So
Okay. So we have TPF that we did receive. We have TPF that we did receive a couple of years ago, and we are expending the rest of that. We're going to be doing mill and fill with those, and we have a list of roads that we have that we're revisiting and visiting and getting quotes on for those roads. We have 2 capital outlays that we are going through, and we have a survey out for 9th Street. That's one of them that we're going to be looking at from Chicago to Globe. And that one we do have a quote for, we have the proposal for. We're just looking at the proposal date. And then once that's complete, then we can move forward with the construction of that. It'll be mill and fill. We did do 3rd Street, we did 16th Street, these are mill and fills. We did 19th Street. Are you wanting the crossroads? I'm kind of just naming streets. I understand that can be confusing.
that's fine. We can ask
Okay,
if we have some questions.
okay.
But on your 19th Street, where was that? Do you know exactly about?
That was from Main Place. I'm sorry, Main Avenue.
Okay.
Over to. I believe that was. B. I believe it was B.
Okay. Yeah.
Over on 19. And then we have 18th and Jackson that was designed. So it's on 18th Street from Kilgore Street to Jackson Street, and that was designed. 18th and Avenue I, that intersection, that was designed. And that project is actually one project. And so we're working on completing that one so we can close it out. We have design for 18th and Avenue O. We are looking for the funds in order to construct that one. We have a design for it, but we're looking to construct it. That's our next step. And then once that's completed, then that portion of the road will be done. I'm not sure if I'm missing When is it?
Just Chicago.
Oh, yes,
Right there
Chicago.
at the curve where
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a mess, so we did that in Millville. Now as well, and the 19th Street right there was okay with this. So.
Okay.
That was actually bare,
I was trying to remember.
yeah, 19th is where Hope Haven is, so. If you haven't driven down there, go by it, it's really nice.
When you say mill and fill, are we, so you mill up the existing road, remove it, do they go back with chip seal? So you're usually milling chip seal, or you going back chip seal, or you going back asphalt?
We're actually going back with asphalt, so we're going back with the HMA and a little bit of wrap. So they are chewing it up, but they're also putting in some fresh HMA.
Very good. And then, TPF grant, help me with that acronym.
Okay,
Okay.
transportation project funding.
Okay. And so those are not, they're not necessarily project specific, you can move it around, or how does that work?
That one was titled various roads,
Okay, various roads.
so we were able to kind of move it around a little bit.
And your capital, are those usually dedicated very specifically, or do they decide it at the council, or?
Capital outlay, is that, I'm sorry,
Yeah, the capital outlay monies for roads.
those are road improvement. And so we usually, we are looking at the roads that are, whenever we're looking at the mill and fill type of roads, then we're looking at the patchwork pothole roads. So roads that have been band-aided over time, they have several potholes, you know, they need more than just a Band-Aid. And those are the roads that we look at.
So those monies that come in on the capital, they're not, they say various roads also?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good.
Well, it depends on how the capital outlay request goes.
Yes, sir.
So if a capital outlay request is specific for 19th Street, it will say 19th Street and those funds will be limited to 19th Street. When the original capital outlay request is written for various roads in and around maintenance, repair, whatever, then that gives you the gives you funding for bill of materials to do maintenance in and around unspecified roads. So to your question, it depends specifically on how the original capital outlay request was written when it was submitted.
Very good. Mr. Davis.
At one time, we were looking at that project on 18th, all the way from Highway 70 to Kilgore. Is that still in place?
That was for the CDPF grant that we did apply for. We are still waiting for an answer on that one. And I believe that those are not gonna come through until I believe it's March, is it March or April, because it was gonna be well after legislation and whatnot, after the governor signs everything. Then we can find out.
No,
the
there's
answer to those.
I believe it's about a mile, isn't it, of from 70 on 18th Street, which has been done and completed. Is that 18th? It's out in front of the Good Life.
Those have been micro sealed before I was here yet.
Okay, all right.
Is there a way for us to get a list of the roads that we have planned to do going forward, or what you have already completed? So we can look at that to see.
Well, I would argue, yes, one, there's a way to get a list, but two, I would argue that you should be involved in making that list.
Right.
Okay, so right now we're asking questions and we're not sure what you're gonna ask.
Yeah.
Because what's on the agenda is discussion of roads. So now what we've done is, in my opinion, gone back about 7 months to where the staff is sitting here right now. I'm on edge. I'm not sure what you're gonna ask. Because it's not on the agenda. It says discussion of roads. So anything's open right now. I think going forward, if we're gonna discuss 70 or excuse me, 18 from Kilgore to backwards to 70, then we should have those as discussion items so we can prepare it.
Yeah.
We'll have graphics for you, we'll have things like that, but right now I've got a catcher's mitt on and I'm not sure if you're gonna have to go curveball, fastball, knuckleball, or what, so. We'll do the best we can, but I'm not sure.
Only reason I mentioned 18th is I heard all of the steps all the way to O, but up from there to 70. So I was just curious if that was still going forward.
I'm on board, but I don't know what to bring forward today.
Yeah.
So today we're, not sure.
I think we're all still trying to get our feet wet and understand, and I was in this for a long time, but I've been disassociated with it, so I'm trying to get
Yeah.
updated as well, and so we're not trying to put you under pressure at all. I think mostly I need to get caught up So
Sure.
we'll definitely get our agendas lined out and get more specific as we move on. Mr. Woolley.
Pat, you, in our last initial meeting, you talked about a company that you were looking at to come in here, a proposal and give us a briefing and take a look at the entire overlay of all the roads.
Yes, it's called the Roadway Asset Services Company, or RAS. And so what they would do is they bring in their van that has lasers and stuff on it, on the van. It's a van that has boxes all the way around it, and they drive every road that we have. At which point they can give us an assessment of the condition of each road, and they break it down actually into 20-foot sections. So they give us an overall of each block, and then they can actually break it down to a 20-foot section, like, oh, this section needs replacement, while the rest is still good, or the whole road needs to be replaced. And so we've already met with them. We've sent over our maps, or GIS. I believe that's what they are, or Johnny just sent that over to him. So right now I'm waiting to hear from them to give us some kind of quote to see how much that would actually cost the city to do. And as soon as I get the quote, hopefully I have it by this next public, I would love to, go over it with you guys to see if it's actually well worth it. But at that point, that company will give an assessment to each road and give it a score from 0 to 100. And at that time, we can actually start building our plans off of that assessment and what roads needs to be mill and fill, totally reconstructed, or just do an overlay, And I think if we get that stuff and we can overlay some of these other roads, we could focus on our roughest roads. Because right now we're just basically, oh, the road looks bad, so let's do this. And we really haven't had a game plan in it. And I think if we get this system, I believe, and have them do an assessment of all of our roads, we'd actually have a good game plan and we could actually plan it out for years in advance. So I wanted to have it here, but they haven't gave me the quote yet for it. So I don't know how much it's going to cost or what we're looking at.
Is that something you think you want on the next agenda?
Yes, if we have the quote. If
Okay.
we don't, then no. It's one of those things. There's many systems out there. There's cheap AI that you can strap a little camera. We could strap our phones to the camera and drive them ourselves, but is that really going to give us what we want? This one actually can tell us the depths of the cracks and the widths of the cracks and everything else. And they'll identify everything that's wrong with our roads within the city.
General concept of making a weighted decision of dollars versus traveled roads. I mean, how much to where your dollar stretches the furthest for the most traveled roads.
Yeah, it's going to cost us a little money up front, but I think in the long run, it's going to be well worth it because this last monies with the TPF, we just did a overlay on a bunch of roads, and I think some of them needed to be redone, and some of them are good with the overlay, but we didn't really have a good assessment. We just went out there and okay, we're gonna do these roads. So the bad thing too is our street department, Steve Chavez, he's made it known he's probably not gonna be here more than 5 years. We got to start getting all this knowledge out of all of our guys' heads into a database so we know for future. If we leave, I leave, if Ms. McVeigh leaves, we know exactly where we're at and we still have our plan going forward. So I don't know. We could look at the system, make a decision at that point once I get the numbers and see if it's actually worth our while to do it.
There's a follow-up question. Does this have the capability to be able to go in and say like bus routes? Does it have the ability to go and say emergency vehicle routes? That kind of, because if you can't have an ambulance go in a pothole and bust a tire, if you got a person in behind, person in the back, does it have that capability too?
The different types of routes, I didn't really check with it. There's a bunch of features on it that they said they can do. They can, from the potholes up to if we want our signage, they can even actually tell us where they think we need signage if we're missing signage. So the capabilities are there. It's just what we want to pay for. in this
And
system.
I'm sure that we have a way to overlay the maps that we have, like in our GPS system. Once we get their report, we can put the bus routes and all that on it. I bet you that could be something that.
Yeah, I don't know about
the
the
city has.
specific AI software interface. One of them that I talked to a vendor slash engineering firm about did have that. I mean, it talked about commercial routes, emergency routes, et cetera. And that would be the above surface overlay, and then it talked about surface overlay, like the damage and so on, and then subsurface as well. So it talked about at least 3 levels of assessment when you use these types of application.
And I've seen where Johnny, you had brought his name up earlier, has overlaid things like that in the.
Yes,
in
he
the
does.
past. So I mean, I think there's the knowledge there to do it ourselves too.
Yeah, and if it doesn't do it, we can use our maps to be like, okay, well, it might be better to do these roads first, but at least then we have something to show how we're gonna base our decision off of. Right now, it's just based off of, we drive down the road and it looks bad, so.
It's unfortunate, no matter any decision you make, there's
Yeah.
always positives and
Negatives,
negatives
yes.
on it, so.
If I may, to Ursula, to your question on agenda item additions that you asked Joe, what I would like to propose, putting on the next agenda, is that we will give you a comprehensive laydown on where we are with status of roads, from requesting designs, requesting construction, requesting maintenance. And we'll go over that. Then we'll show you the closeouts, what we worked on over the last 6 months to a year, and then those closed out. So we'll give you the graphics, et cetera. And we'll go through that. So we have a baseline to show where we're started, with that. Second thing that I would like to propose is going forward, like Pat said, we are a small group of folks who are city employees. And the notice of funding opportunities and other things will come through, and we will oftentimes have a pretty quick deadline to put a grant proposal or an application together to get it going, so we don't miss that funding opportunity. We believe that as a public works committee, specifically focused on roads, parks, and other things, that we want to collaborate with you as a cross section of the citizens of the city to help us with direction. Do we build from the university towards Western Dairy Transport? Do we build from Western Dairy Transport towards the university? Do we start in the center of the city and beautify, downtown and work outwards? These are questions that are always on our mind, and it would certainly help to work together so we can give you proposed courses of action, and then we get some collective brain power and say, yay, verily, the city's road concept over the next 10 years is to, and this is a hypothetical, but to start with the city center, omit the state roads, and then focus on our roads and beautify it from the city outward? Or do we focus on rapid transit? Or do we focus on the main lines of approach for emergency vehicles and make those the first priority? Those types of things. But anything that we make, we kind of do unilaterally, and we go in there and we make a decision with a very small group that we think's in the best decision in the city. But as you just mentioned,
Yeah.
as soon as you do something that you think is awesome, somebody says, we did that, right? So
You'll always have that.
so
Yeah.
you're going to. So I want my feedback to be those guys. That's right. They did it, right?
Sure.
We did it together. We did it as, 15 people deciding as opposed to 3 or 4 or 5 people deciding. So 2 items there. One, I would like to get on the agenda that would give you a comprehensive laydown on where we've been over the last 12 months and where we are and where we think we're going because of the applications we put in. 2, start to work together. We will give you some ideas on what we think we want to do as TPF and capital outlay, and there's a couple other roadway funding opportunities that are pretty standard, and what we think we're doing with those, and then get your assessments so we can take that to the city council and go, this is what we're going to do in the next 6 months as far as applying. This is what we're going to do in the next 12 months as far as applying and constructing, designing, et cetera. Those types of things. So that's kind of what's on my mind, and I asked the city manager to you.
Mr. Davis.
Would you entertain a motion to table this discussion until our next meeting with these items on the agenda that he mentioned as well as I'm having several questions come up as we're talking here that I could speak to them about and not be unfair to them or.
Sure. I think we're gonna try to get a lot more specific as we move forward in our agenda items and Ms. Parker, was you able to get that information
so.
from him?
Yeah.
And
Making a motion to table it to our next.
yeah, I think we don't have any action items today. I think we can just make a motion to set this as I mean, we'll just set it as an agenda item. And we can, yeah, perfect. I don't believe there's any need to have a formal motion on it.
Can you provide maps for us so that way we can start divvying out the sections of the roads and start making a plan and working towards making that list of these are the roads we want to start at, build out to, start doing that so we can, as a group, kind of start divvying those out.
Yeah, we can definitely look at what we're thinking.
Yeah, just like a small map of just the city limits, all the roads that we need to do. That way we can say, okay, I'm gonna take these roads, let me go look at them. Then I'm gonna put them in priority that we think, so.
Yeah, we can get you a map of the city.
And that might flow into your next report where we could see maybe your maps, maybe outline already your major arterials that some of those things, I don't know, that might be in your report. I don't know what you have available, but we can definitely work on it. Another question is, I don't know, I guess we don't even know what your capabilities are, manpower, equipment wise. I don't know that. And not that I need to know everything, but maybe a brief update of some of that in the next meeting. Just to know what kind of equipment we have and don't have, what our capabilities are, maybe manpower, etc., if possible. Just so we might know, might be a recommendation from us in the future.
Okay. I can get you a report of all of that for the next council or for the next meeting.
If you're able to, we'll check with you on the agenda. I don't want to put a lot of pressure on you, but I think we would definitely like to know your manpower and equipment levels, etc.
Okay.
Any more further questions on roads this time from our committee?
We would like to just give you some feedback on, we are on a fairly short suspense on some road applications. So Joe, if you'd like to take it and talk about Lime Street and West University.
Sure.
Just to, and this is for information. But we are proposing taking 3 projects, 2 projects on the same road to city council next week. So that we can start the application process through the TPF fund. Joe, if you wouldn't mind talking about those 3 projects, please.
Okay, so with our TPF applications, we do these yearly. And last year we took the same roads and we put the applications in. We are putting the applications in again this year. And that's kind of the process of the TPF grant and how it works, transportation project funding. So what we're going to do is design is one of them. That's our first application. That is going to be for West University, and that's almost 2 miles of West University to design it. And that design is going to include drainage, reconstruction, and striping, safety, like pedestrian plan type of items. Also carbon gutter, ADA, those types of things. That's for design. And then our maintenance is going to be for Lime Street. And that's almost 1 mile on Lime Street. And that's going to be maintenance, which means it's going to be probably about 4 inches, 6 inches deep. And that's for mill and fill. And we're going to do that really similar to what we just talked about with 3rd Street and 16th Street and that type of thing, kind of what we got done already. And then we're going to go over and we're also going to apply for capital. And that capital is going to be the reconstruction of the design of West University. So with TPF. Capital, we won that last year. And so we more than likely will not win that again this year, and we understand that. So strategically, we're gonna go ahead and put the design in. So that means in a couple of years, we can get capital, but that works out. That gives us time for the design, and then it will follow through, and we will, hopefully it will follow through. And then we will do the reconstruction of our design.
And I'll help, if you don't mind, I'll kind of lay out how we came to that and how that works. On the TPF granting, we didn't miss out. We applied, but we weren't awarded a specific grant. So we got on the phone, got a Zoom meeting with the grantors, and we said, well, we wanted to ask, why did we miss out, and how can we get better at getting these funds in the future? And there's all kinds of hullabaloo, and they kind of smiled and they said almost as much, but they said, well, we can't really, you need to apply every year, etc. And you'll probably get some here and there, but let us tell you how it really works. So how it really works is when you apply for capital, i.e. the most expensive, think of the words capital, repair, and maintenance, or capital or maintenance and repair. Is different. Capital would have more dollar signs next to it. Maintenance repair would have a few less dollar signs, and then design and plan would have $1 or $2 signs. So they're exponentially more expensive. Plans are not as expensive as repairs. Repairs are not as expensive as reconstruction or capital. So they said, listen, if you get a capital project that's very expensive, i.e. $1 million plus or minus per mile of road, you can apply, but you're not going to get that the next cycle. You're going to get probably, if you get the most expensive grant, you're probably going to get the least expensive grant, if anything, on the next year. Then the next year after that, you probably get the middle of the road, no pun intended, grant. And then in third or fourth year, you'll probably get the capital grant. So Joe's strategy, our collective strategy, is to put in for one lower level, i.e. the plan and design, which we will probably get awarded. Then when that plan and design is completed by an engineering firm, we will have already put in for the capital project to support that plan and design. Same road, same stretch, same length of road. It's just one funding source will be plan and design. That will come to an end. Those engineers will hand that plan and design over. It will be bid on later when we get the capital funding award for that, and then it'll go into construction. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, roads need repair. So we're going to put in for all three of these types of things, and there's a cycle to it. At any given time, we want an engineering firm working on a plan and design for a set of roads, an engineering firm doing repair, which is as far as 4 to 6 inches down, and doing the mill and fill, like you've seen recently in the last couple of months, and then the full capital project in big tractors, big trucks, all the way down, reconstructing the entire road from base layer up on that deal. So that's why sometimes you see the same name, same stretch of road, same kind of year groups for application, but it looks like it's redundant. And it looks like we're putting in for these things that kind of don't make sense, but they do, because once you're on the rhythm of that funding cycle, then you will always be moving forward. If you break that rhythm, you'll skip a year or two, because there's a certain, like I said, there's a rhythm, there's a gamesmanship to this. And there's some knowing, there's importance in knowing that if you apply for a specific grant and you don't get it, it's not because you lost, you're a loser, or nobody likes you. It's because you're not in that high probability cycle for that year group on that type of grant. Did I make it more confusing, or did I make it more clear?
That's clear. I mean, the simplest way that I think of it is the money has to be shared with the entire state. And what they're trying to do is share that money in different areas each year, is how I see it.
More or less, yeah. So if our neighboring city got a capital grant and we just got one, we probably won't get one. They'll get that because they're going to spread it around, but we will probably get a design and plans grant, which is much lower. But once you get the design and plans grant, you're there almost compelled to give you a capital grant afterwards because they've already invested in the plan of design. Nobody's gonna give you a plan of design grant and say, okay, you're done. They know that's a future obligation, so there's a very high probability of getting the lower level grant that you'll get a higher level.
And each year we're planning on putting in for maintenance regardless on what cycle of design or construction that we're doing.
100%.
Yeah.
Is there a limit on those TPFs? How much?
There is a limit, so design is 500,000. Maintenance is 2 million, or I believe it's 2 million, and capital is 4 million this year.
Okay, that's fairly significant.
It is.
Okay.
And actually, it might be 3 million for maintenance. Maybe not.
Does Portales have a city engineer?
No,
We have on-call engineers.
Very good. Any more questions on roads? If not, we'll move on to parks. So on parks, I haven't prepared much for that. I can't remember how the suggest who suggested on the agenda to refer to them, but let's just begin with some basic information. Pat, sorry to put you on the spot.
No, you're good.
Do you know about how many we have, or can you tell
So-
us a little bit
So
about it?
we actually had our first, we just created a little parks working group for the city.
Okay,
We met last, about 2 weeks ago now. We're gonna meet actually tomorrow at 9 at City Hall. So what we're coming up with, this last meeting, what we did is we talked about the parks. And we just talked about what we want in each park. What's the minimum things we want in each park? And then we discussed what would we like for the city to have as a whole, like basketball courts. Okay, how many basketball courts do we need? And then we went down the list, we went through baseball fields and stuff like that. And we just made a list of all these things. Our next step to this is just tightening the overall plan for a parks plan. And then we're gonna start actually divvying up different things to different parks, if that makes sense. Like if we need 3 basketball courts, then we'll decide, hey, which parks should we do them? Maybe put them 1 in each area of the city or something like that. But, and then I know another idea came in, something with some water. We got an idea yesterday, so I'm gonna talk to the parks crew about that tomorrow. And how we can collection of rainwater to our parks and use that in some of our parks to maybe even water the fields and stuff like that. So we've started the process, and we're going to continue the process until we can get everything done. So basically, like the streets, we're going to come up with a game plan, and then Ms. McVeigh will have the game plan. So when she finds a grant that spit something that we need, we'll get it taken care of right away. Like one of the things is we need bathrooms in all of our parks. We just got to figure out how do we get bathrooms and maintain them without them being messed up, So that's the kind of stuff that we're actually talking about in these groups. So far, every park that we think we want lighting, we want some walking trails, picnic areas, dog stations, bathrooms, drinking stations, and and new signs and possibly even security cameras. So that's the minimum we want in each park. And now we're going to go and design each park of what we come up with. Some of the stuff we already have, the skate park, we got that. A little bike path track that they have over there too at Rotary. And so the next thing we're going to do is figure out where we want different things and start the design on them. That does go into overall, and design is also going to come to thinking about a swimming pool and probably a rec center. We got to incorporate that into our design because I don't want to build something at City Park, then all of a sudden our plan changes and we have to take all that out to put something else in. So I want our designs and plans to be well thought out of what we want for city of Portales, and then we'll just start executing these plans. First thing though is we gotta get water to it, so.
One thing, if I could share with you, we have a drainage problem in Portales. It floods every time that it rains. It doesn't rain often, so we forget about it sometimes, but we are much better than we used to be as far as drainage. We do drain. Years ago when I was a kid, if it ever rained, we were underwater for all summer. I mean, it would be a lake at 18th Street, and that problem was solved accidentally, by the way. I don't believe it was intentional. When they closed the landfill, they removed that dirt to cover the landfill, and that created a huge retention basin that the water allowed the Globe ditch to go ahead and flow out. But it could have been on purpose. I shouldn't say that, but I think it was by accident. But it did help us. But anyway, back to parks. One thing I think we've noticed in a few projects I'm aware of that, if we go into an upstream retention area, so if we can capture water further upstream, it tends to help us downstream a little. Many communities, their parks are actually, they hold some of they retain it for a short period of time. So it all doesn't rush to, in our case, the Globe ditch all at once, but our parks tend to shed water. And so if we could have just some areas like that, prime example, we didn't actually do it, but Buena Vida, if you remember the north side also was, if it ever rained, it was a lake. That's not actually, we didn't put that pond, actually, we coordinated with the railroad and put the drainage on the other side. I know I made a mess of the road, but you can get through there. And so just an idea to keep in mind as we're looking at these, if there's a way that it can help us with some of our drainage or upstream retention. I know that's a much bigger project, but something to keep in mind.
Yeah, to that point, Sammy, so New Mexico is investing heavily through the Office of State Engineer in 2 different types of rainwater harvesting, and that's what we're talking about. That's the term that the state is using in other states. So what you're talking about, there's a very comprehensive handbook out on doing residential, park, and business passive rainwater harvesting, which is where you would cut the equivalent of like swales or canals in your park, make that part of the beautification process. So when it does rain, as opposed to shedding the water, it kind of temporarily holds the water in rock basins, etc., and then it kind of settles back down into the park type of thing. And then the active rainwater harvesting is where you collect it off the rooftops and put it in barrels and use it. And that's a different thing that we'll look at. But I think that initially the state does publish a very good book about integrating passive rainwater harvesting into your green spaces and things like that.
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
That's very important for us.
If I could throw one other point in, part of the general consensus is that Portales doesn't have a lot of things, but one thing we do have is an abundance of parks. So why not make these as nice as they possibly could be in order to attract people and to bump up the quality of life? So one of the considerations that Pat and Ms. McVeigh are taking into consideration is, yes, we may need 3 basketball courts or whatever, but if you put 3 basketball courts together here, now all of a sudden that can host a basketball tournament. Or if you put 3 volleyball courts here, now all of a sudden that can be a tournament situation, attract travelers, revenue, and not have 3 volleyball courts spread all over the city that they do us good, but they don't do us as much good. So having each one of these parks kind of have its own specialty, like one baseball field may specialize in being a t-ball field where it attracts that type of thing.
Great idea. Very good.
Like maybe tennis courts there at the city park, turning those into pickleball courts.
Pickleball's got to be there.
It's gotta be
in
there
big
now.
trouble.
We've thought about all this, and so, that's what our working group is kind of doing, so. If you guys would like to have one of y'all's members on the working group, we wouldn't mind,
It's your
and
working group staff mostly, or do you have outside community?
it's mostly just staff, so it's just a working group that we're coming together. But once we get our plan together, we will share it with you and go from there.
Very good. Any more questions on our parks? Members?
Gotta have water.
Gotta get the water first, yeah, but we're working on that and hopefully we will have it soon.
Yeah, so to that point, very quickly, because then we'll segue over to cemetery. But the affluent water, Pat's working on that. That was also on our ask for legislative requests. It was, I believe, we had some really good discussions on part of the funding ask for connecting affluent water to the parks. When we get the total suspended solids in check with the holding pond at the wastewater treatment facility, we should be allowed to start flowing that water. So it should all come together fairly soon. When I'm talking about soon, I'm talking about municipality soon, which is, it is what it is. On the second piece of the water as well, doing some research back the last couple of days on rainwater harvesting, the Office of State Engineers is very motivated to assist financially with doing active rainwater harvesting with cisterns, catch basins on top of roofs, covered parking, catch basins, etc., to assist with city buildings, school buildings, things like that. So we're going to take a hard look at integrating with all of our parks plans a way to catch water as well, store it at the park and use it as the park, to not replace, but to augment the affluent water system as well. And I think we can do that with somebody else's money because they seem to be standing by trying to give that away. We'll start doing research on that as well.
Yeah, no. I was able to implement some of that at my house for 2 years. Of course, last year I had more than I could ever use from my rooftop. The year before, and I have a garden, I use very little, no potable water. It was all, and we didn't have water. I was able to capture enough to keep it going, and you can do that fairly cheap. So some ideas, it works. And years ago, I think we did a project like that. The old city hall we had a project way before my time actually, but there was a Office State Engineers promoted that for years. I think they funded portions of that. So
I think they'll fund the majority of it,
Yeah.
based on the literature they're putting out. So
Yes, sir. Any further questions? Very good. Next item, discussion of the cemetery. I'd like to begin by deferring to our mayor, Mr. Mike Davidson, to begin our discussion.
So previously we did have a cemetery task force. So there has been quite a few hours put into various points of the cemetery. And in order to get this discussion kind of caught up and started on the right foot, before you have 3 documents. One is a 1953 version of the cemetery rules, and those are the rules that are currently in place. They're rough, they're outdated. And so one of the concepts that we started with, I put those into an analysis program and said, reduce this to the ridiculous without losing any context whatsoever. And it took 43 rules and 5 Babyland rules and reduced that to 12 rules and 3 Babyland rules without losing anything. So it exampled the fact that we can trim the cemetery rules down extensively to the point that somebody might actually read them. And but in that process, we presented that to the task force, and Mr. Standiford noticed that one element that it did leave out was how many cremations could be interred in one gravesite. And he also suggested, what if we split that to where there was a set of rules for the gravesite itself, and then general cemetery rules, and then the things that equated to maintenance and operations. So most people would, that way they could read, what do I need to know about taking care of our family plot? So that would split those up. And so the last document that you have is a set of condensed rules, but it's split into those 3 areas. And that is where we left off on that. So this has been something that's been there since 1953. So this is not an urgency in that regard, meaning I would like to see everybody here read those, see what you think, and then that could also be a discussion coming up soon. So that's all I wanted to start that part off with.
Sure, and I would say that I know these are not, I know they've been updated since 1953 because
It could be
I
in
wrote-
2006.
Yeah.
So I'll do the dates on here.
I don't, there's some, I know it's been dealt with.
Okay.
Since then, that could have been the original, for sure. Very good, so we did meet on that, the city, just real briefly, I think, got a grant, we purchased a lot more land. Cause they're about out of room where it's
Yes.
at, so. That's correct, and, currently. Hasn't moved forward past that on any of that new land, I'm guessing.
No, we're basically at the beginning, so I'm not even sure if a survey's been done. We haven't found one, so we need to actually really just get moving on this and get it engineered and everything and get it a plan going. Cause I want them to build us a plan to actually incorporate the reuse water in some other stuff, you know, maybe even a retaining pond that for the rainwater, so we can actually utilize that water to water out there as well. But we got to get moving on this.
So, as Mr. Mayor Davidson said, we had a brief cemetery committee in that small committee, as a member and did a little bit of drawing. So, and we have it on screen. I was wanting to show you some ideas that things that I think we have some problems. Christina, maybe the one Google Earth begin with. So up on the screen, there's almost the land. So we have the old part of the cemetery, which in that map's covered by trees. Then there's the new part of the cemetery that that road goes through. We kind of see it there, and then we have that whole other piece, which I'm not sure how many acres that is. 40, the new piece. And the current cemetery is probably around 30.
20, I believe.
There's
The current-
16 behind the cemetery,
Yeah.
and
20.
I think it's
So I'm gonna step up and just point to a couple things because I can't do it from here if y'all don't mind. So this land was purchased for this land. I think I did that when I was manager a couple of, at that time, we were failing in any negotiations. We were thinking we may have to go do something back here before that land was bought, but we also needed it for drainage, all those subdivisions runoff in there. We had a big problem, and so we purchased that land separately. The thing was, I started looking at this land to draw, and I do have some drawings, but some things that I thought needed some further consideration. For example, we have a university that goes all the way to college. Or somewhere, I mean, wouldn't it be nice if we had another road? Between Kilgore and, well, another arterial somewhere there. Now, I know we don't want to build roads, but when you're planning these. ideally, let's look at some areas that we might say, hey, we need an access across there and another access. So there's some things that I get nervous about. You know, as we do that, we may need further another entrance and vice versa. So there's just some things, and I'm not sure that needs to be in place, but those are things that I think need to be considered. This is why you probably would need some professional help to do that. Christina, we can go to the other page one of the map. Oops. Can't see that very good. Maybe to the other one. This one? Yeah, that's fine. So you can't see it. This is just an idea of an extension, and then this is where I realized we need some help because when I went out there, I didn't know where this could begin. There's an easement over there. There's wells out there. We need to deal with some drainage, roads, etc. But this is just a concept. One of the things I would like to point out that from my knowledge of the cemetery, it's really difficult if you have really wide sections because it's hard to get your equipment in. It's hard to get your have a funeral in those. It's really better to have. They can be as long as you need them, but the widths of them are very sensitive. So really have to keep in mind we can't have huge widths, which means we need lots of roads. We do need that for parking, etc. And so just some things to think about. Another thing that we've had trouble with in the past is back in the 70s, I believe the city council voted for the cemetery to now be flat headstones, all flat. Well, that lasted about 10 years until someone protested, and then the next council said, no, we're not gonna do that anymore. So you have this mixture of stuff and it's problematic. One thing I will tell you is the flat stones, the flat sections are much easier to maintain, but lots easier. So I believe that my opinion, we always need to have two sections open. One for uprights, one for flats. And likely the upright sections would probably be considerably more expensive. They're considerably more difficulty to maintain. So those are just some key aspects that I think as you move forward with your engineers or surveyors or how we need to go about that. So,
Mr. Stanford,
yes, sir.
you know, flats are a great thing if the wind don't blow and you don't have dirt. But the Legion has been for 3 years, there's flat markers for graves for veterans. We're continually having to dig them up, pull them up, raise them up, and next time you go out, there's more sand, more dirt, that stuff flows in like that too. And those markers are about 55 pounds a piece. Takes 2 men to do it.
That's the one where it owns it.
It doesn't make a difference.
Babyland's the same way.
Yeah,
It's just a constant. Blow sand is called blow sand for a reason. You just.
And the uprights are the same way though. There's some of those that animals, something, holes get underneath and they're starting to give it this number and.
I think where they do them, so some of them, the uprights, where they did them correctly at a nice base of concrete, installed them. And the flats, if they did them correctly, but unfortunately, they probably all started them out too low to begin with. And then they just rolled in, but I agree with you, I know that's a problem. Maintenance wise, and flats are much easier, but. I agree, so.
We've done about 1,800 of them.
That's, yeah, wow.
Yep, so well, we are starting to think about that. One thing that we really do have to think about is the maps of this place, you know, and basically how people purchase plots and pay for services and stuff like that. I did another demo with it's called Semi-Site Cemetery. In this site, actually, we can actually include all of our maps. And from your phone, we could actually look up a loved one and then it'll pinpoint on the map where they're located. And if you're in the cemetery, it'll give you a map to them. It also will tell us what plots are available for purchase and what are not, and you could just push a button. But not only that, it probably greatly help with just the mapping and everything overall of the cemetery. So I am looking at that. I have another meeting with them on Tuesday to kind of get a price. Of course, with everything, there's a price to everything, so. But one of the things that we're looking at is, right currently, the way our system is, it's all on an Excel spreadsheet. We ever lose that spreadsheet, we're gonna be hurting. So, and another thing I want to do is get the knowledge out of the crew out at the cemetery, and put it down somewhere to where anybody know, because JC, who's out there currently, he's gonna be eligible for retirement. If not now, pretty soon. If he decides to retire, we're gonna lose all that knowledge in his head. Just like Mr. Stanford, he has the knowledge in his head, but it's been a while, so. But it's stuff like that we are looking at trying to get, and I know we need to plan this, so. I just gotta come up with a plan of what's first, and more likely we gotta get that the section started, get some engineers out there, get us a plan. Because we got to design the roads, we got to design the water, we got to design everything out there, and incorporate everything that we want into our cemetery. So just like the parks, we'll probably just have a little working group that just does cemetery and go from there.
Mr. Chair, but one other thing that the cemetery task force previously left off with that I wanted to bring back up is one thing that was easily discovered is that the prices in the cemetery are outrageously low. It is a great distance from coming close to sustaining itself. The cost of the plots, the cost of opening and closing. So that's something that is going to have to be addressed, especially before we flow into the new section. Is getting the fees more modernized. Every time they open and close a grave, the city probably loses $300 to $400, and in doing so, we cannot improve that cemetery. It's never going to make money, but at least we could, stop the bleeding and keep it from losing so much money, especially if we want it to be a nice place. So anyway, that's where we left off, was with the discovery that the rates were going to have to be dealt with.
Well, our committee's here to help you staff and council. So however, you'd like us to help or review, please let us know. We'll bring it up. Work on it.
Have called around, got a few prices, and I'll get those to y'all so we can get an idea on what we need to do price wise on lots and opening, closing, and
Okay. That's something we could probably work on pretty quickly.
Quick question on that, just for clarification. So when we start talking prices, and I think we all need to decide on this, not necessarily today, but looking forward. So are the prices, we're talking funding now, so do we talk funding at the finance committee, or do we talk funding at the public works and parks committee, or both? So something to consider as we go forward.
Well, I think we can always, we could always make a recommendation on funding, but that would always have to go probably still before your finance committee. I don't think that, we have to get it real far in the weeds, but I think, we're pretty familiar that we can't operate certain things without getting your funding. There's certain things we can't do if funding's not correct, so I don't know. It's up to you, however you think we need to proceed with that, but.
If I could throw out a recommendation, what Mr. Watkins just did on his own time, he spent quite a bit of time researching that. And I think that is the role that this committee could play, is research as much as possible. But I definitely think that's a finance committee decision on rates.
Yes, we're just making the recommendation.
Absolutely.
And then they're just making the recommendation to.
Absolutely.
the council.
I'm just curious, with the Ute Water Project, the different communities that are gonna benefit from this have all bought into and continue yearly to buy into supporting the project. They each community makes a financial contribution to the whole. As far as the cemetery goes, is the cemetery solely funded by the city?
I'm gonna answer that. Theoretically, so. You basically have two types of funds within the city. And you have other funding sources, but within the city, you have general funds and then you have enterprise funds. Four enterprise funds in the city are airport, cemetery, solid waste management, and water. That means the product you're providing is the cemetery. The cemetery product sold as a cost of goods sold should pay for itself. So we don't, if it's not making ends meet, then we're skipping across lines to take money from general funds, which is earmarked for everything else, but not the cemetery. And we're taking general fund money away from everything else that's designed to be funded by general funds to fund the cemetery, the airport, solid waste management, and water. So anytime any of those enterprise funds don't make ends meet, we're robbing from Peter to pay Paul.
Because what I was thinking is, because it's a municipally owned cemetery, would it be out of line to ask the local churches, for instance, to help support the upkeep and the operation of the cemetery, because everybody uses it? And would it be something to consider to say, have an annual fee that a church pays? It could be on a sliding scale. It doesn't have to, everybody doesn't have to pay the same amount, but on a sliding scale to help fund the upkeep and the expansion of the cemetery.
Best answer I can give you right now is we can do some research to see if anybody else does anything like that. What it would look like.
We can always ask. Pretty sure we couldn't mandate. But, you know,
And I'd like to get our funds increased to where we operate more on an enterprise fund level, that it's more self-sustaining. And if that included anticipated donations of the.
one serious flaw that could possibly turn into a revenue source, the cemetery doesn't offer perpetual care. And one of the biggest messes out there that we've seen is so many of the grave sites don't have any relatives left to care for them, or they have moved away, one or the other. So in reality, the majority of the graves at the cemetery, approximately 12,000 graves, are not being taken care of. With causes two problems. One is the visual appeal. But the other thing is something, and this is where this committee could come in. There could be a possibility of offering some type of perpetual care to those plots and to raise revenue for the operation of the cemetery. In other words, we'll take care of your family plot for X dollars per month or X dollars per year. I know a lot of people that would pay that, as opposed to buzzing down here for 2 days a year to put flowers on the grave and pull weeds and then run off and leave it for another year or two. So just food for thought.
And there, it gets, there's a lot to look at there. I believe that there's some state laws regarding if you were to put perpetual care monies aside, those have to be documented differently. So I don't know, we'd have to work on that a little bit, but I like the idea. Any more discussion on cemetery? Very good. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
We need to rank our next meeting date.
It's set every 2 weeks, I believe.
Is it set?
Yes.
So the next one will be. February 26th.
You need to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
We didn't incorporate that into
Oh, okay,
our agenda, but next agenda we'll have both of the meetings.
Yes, sir.
okay.
Again, the whole entertainment motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion and a second, meeting's adjourned.